work hard and you're doing things wrong, it gets frustrating. Can you think of a time in our career when we were working hard consistently, but we didn't know it on purpose? It wasn't intentional, but we were doing things wrong, and so we were getting very, very frustrated.
Yeah, like you said, especially when we started business, we didn't know we were working really, really, really hard. Most of our time was spent at the office, but we were just working. We didn't necessarily know if what we were doing was right or wrong. And I think that showed up most in who we were trying to work with, the people we were bringing into our firm. Just as a brand new starting out, who we want on our team, we did not have much of a filter.
Right.
We were pretty much just excited, and we're like, hey, if we can do this, anyone can do this. And I think that's where we ran into a lot of problems. We weren't looking for a specific type of person.
Yeah. And what that does is that creates burnout. I was having a conversation with a teammate, and I was telling him that, and that this is I think a topic that a lot of people can relate to. When you're an entrepreneur, you're in business, whether it's part-time or full-time, right? You have a job, maybe you're trying to build a business and you're busting your butt and things aren't working because you're not doing things right. That's the recipe for burning out. So the goal is not to not make mistakes, but the goal, I would say, if we were to title this episode, would be to spend as little time as possible working hard and doing it wrong.
Yeah, I like it.
So I went golfing with someone who golfs all the time, like probably 2-3 times, maybe 4 times a week. I don't golf like that. But I spent probably 9 to 10 weeks every Tuesday for an hour with a golf pro taking lessons, right? Mm-hmm. So I go out golfing with this individual, and I end up beating them. And they didn't believe me that I don't go golfing all the time. And it was the thing in my head that stood out to me the most in that moment, I remember, was I said, this is a perfect example. I didn't say this to them, but in my head, I was like, this is a perfect example of why you could spend as much time as you want practicing something incorrectly, and you're not going to get any better at it because you're still doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because it was hours and hours and hours and hours. So let's talk about this topic for a second of working hard but doing it incorrectly, and burnout. Because I think a lot of people get in business and they're trying to figure this out, but they don't necessarily have the best system in place. Maybe they come in a team or an environment or a culture that isn't very systemized, that doesn't have things outlined for them. It's not a turnkey operation. And there's enough there for you to try to figure it out, but there's not enough there for you to be good at it without doubt, right? And you work hard and you work hard and you work hard and you work hard, but you don't have a guide, and you're doing things incorrectly, and it just gets frustrating and frustrating and more frustrating. How do you avoid that? What are some things that you can do to fix that?
The first thing is a little self-awareness to know, hey, what I'm doing isn't working. Because if you don't realize that soon enough, you're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of energy. And the second thing is, when you realize that, you got to look for feedback.
Okay, so constant feedback. One thing that I think people struggle with is feedback. Mm-hmm. It's maybe I don't have a place to go, and if I do have a place to go, I'm not even aware of the fact that I'm working hard. Because mind you, when we were at that place in our career, we were still making money. Mm-hmm. And our income was still growing. It was still getting bigger. I mean, we were still making a couple $100,000 a year. But we were frustrated, and it was taking us probably 5 to 6 times the amount of effort in order to be at that place as it would now today. Right? True or false?
True.
We were busting our butt. We were doing high volume, but we weren't very effective. But one thing that we got really good at is being self-aware of whether or not our efforts are paying off. And number two is getting coaching. Now, one of the things with coaching is it's knowing where to go, right?
Yes, there is definitely, the wrong, seeking feedback is good, but there's the wrong person to seek feedback on, and there's the right person.
So we go to our coach constantly and get feedback. So here's what I want you to do. If you're in business right now and you're trying to figure out how to win, here's what you do. Number one, analyze is my skill level right now where it should be. If I run 10 appointments, how many clients am I going to pick up? If I run 10, recruiting appointments, how many teammates am I going to pick up, right? Is my skill level there? I'll tell you why. The gentleman that I was having this conversation with, he was working hard, but he was spending a lot of time working hard, not getting feedback, not correcting, not conscious of the fact that he's not really being that effective. And what it starts to do is it starts to affect your belief. You start to doubt your ability to close, or you start to doubt whether or not what you're doing even works. And it's not the fact that you're bad at the business, it's the fact that you're doing something incorrectly. In his example, he was constantly running appointments with the wrong people. Like appointments that even if he was the best closer in his industry, it was not going to close. They were unqualified. They didn't meet the prerequisites to even be a client. The person that they were referred to by didn't have any credibility, so they didn't even take that person seriously. They automatically saw it as a joke just because it came from so-and-so. So he was constantly on appointments, but he was doing something incorrectly. And what happened is eventually it got to the point where it affected his confidence and it affected his belief about what he was doing. Now he was going into appointments with doubt that didn't come from this appointment, but it came from all the bad appointments before that.
Expecting rejection, expecting it to be hard.
He expected everything to fail.
Yeah, that's real, and that's very damaging. It's kind of like in relationships too. If you have a really, really bad, like toxic relationship where it really damages you psychologically, you carry that weight into your next relationship. So that's why it's so important to protect your mentality, your belief, what you feel that you're good at, by not setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, and then that relationship's just gonna fail. Mm-hmm. And then it happens again on the next one, and it happens again on the next one. And so knowing in self-awareness of whether or not what you're doing is working, what we always do is we constantly at the end of every day, but more so really at the end of every month, we look and we go, okay, what did we do this month? Where could we improve on? Where are our numbers better? On a 12-month basis, are we trending up? Are we trending down? And finding the solution. You got to get good at finding the problem and finding the solution. Mm-hmm. Finding the area in your business that you're not doing well at. Finding the person who's really good at it and getting feedback. So we'll go to Dan constantly, and we're really good at getting unstuck. If something's not working for us, we realize it right away.
And we reach out, and we get correction on it. We tell him everything we're doing. He knows how to ask the right questions, so we tell him step by step what we're doing, and he'll pinpoint, hey, try this. And
I'll tell you, to know whether or not you need feedback, here's what you got to track. Because just because something's always been doesn't mean that's how it has to always be, right? Just because you've always grown at this speed, or you've always made this amount of money, or this has always been normal, just because things have always been normal doesn't mean they have to stay that way. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm constantly coming from a growth mentality and an abundance mentality, and I'm trying to get bigger and I'm trying to get better, then I'm constantly looking for growth. So I'm looking at my 12-month numbers going, are we getting bigger? Are we getting smaller, or are we just staying the same? And if you're just staying the same, that's not you growing. Mm-hmm. So that means there's somewhere that you could get feedback. That means maybe there's somewhere you could get improved on. If I've got 5 or 6 different categories and I could just get a little bit better in 2 or 3 of them, I could double my income. I could double my business. I could triple my business. And so am I growing, or am I getting stuck? And then I reach out and I'm saying, okay, just because I'm growing even at 5%, 10%, 30%, 40%, doesn't mean it has to just be that, right? And so it's constantly going, I could get better. I can get better. That's the part that a lot of people are stuck, or they suck at what they're doing and they don't even know it because they're not paying attention to it. Their level of self-awareness is very low. They're not thinking about improving.
You always have to be looking to get better.
Yeah, you always have to be looking to get better, but you have to be aware to even look. And so this topic, spend as little time as possible doing things wrong. It really is for the person who's doing things already.
You have to be working. I mean, that's
you
the
can't
first
correct
thing.
zero, right?
Yeah.
And so it's for the person who's doing things already. Because here's who doesn't burn out. The person who does nothing never burns out. They never burn out. They may quit. They may quit, but they never burnt out. They don't burn out because they're not working to begin with. So if you're not working, you have no chance of burning out. The person who I feel bad for is a person who's trying and never makes progress, and keeps trying and never makes progress, and continues to try without making progress. And eventually that person, as time goes on, their confidence, their belief in what they're doing, their belief in their ability to ever make it big starts to shrink because of the fact that they are trying, but they're just doing it wrong, whether on purpose, and it's usually not. It's usually completely by accident. They have no clue where they need to change, but all they know is that they're trying their best, and that person eventually quits. You can't quit if you never tried, but that person eventually gives up. It's not even that they quit, it's that they give up and they go, you know what, this isn't working, and how much longer am I going to keep doing this without getting a result?
You got to get that feedback.
So what I want you guys to do as we finish this episode is take a look at whatever it is you're trying to grow, whatever it is you're trying to improve in. Find out if you're growing or not. Go to your coach and say, hey, I feel like there's something that I'm doing wrong or something I could be doing better, and get some feedback and grow from that, because to continue to practice or do something wrong, it doesn't matter how much you do it. You're only going to get so good.
Yep. You said it better than I could have.
Ronnie had a lot to say in this episode, as you can see, but I appreciate the confirmations. All right, you guys, we're out.
Bye.